Greetings to everyone joining this conversation. Today we are going to peel back the layers on a phenomenon that is quietly but profoundly reshaping the landscape of our modern world. It is a shift that affects our neighborhoods, our economies, and the very structure of the human family. We are diving deep into a singular, uncomfortable question. Why are men, in record numbers, no longer investing in commitment? This isn't a discussion rooted in bitterness or a desire to assign blame. Instead, it is an exercise in intellectual honesty, a cold, hard look at a shifting reality. We are going to perform a rational assessment of risk versus reward. We are going to look at the dating market not through the lens of romance and poetry, but through the lens of economics, psychology, and self-preservation. What we will find is that for many men, the decision to remain single isn't a failure of character. It is a calculated, logical response to a game where the rules have changed, the stakes have been raised, and the payout has been significantly diluted. To understand why men are walking away from the table today, we have to look at the table our grandfathers sat at. For generations, commitment, specifically marriage, was the undisputed natural progression for a man. It was the marker of maturity. It was the rite of passage that transformed a boy into a man of standing within his community. In that era, the blueprint was clear. You worked hard, you found a partner, you built a home, and you raised a family. There was a social contract in place. A man provided protection, financial stability, and a steady hand. In return, he received respect, a peaceful home, and the shared labor of a partner who valued his contribution. The roles were distinct, the expectations were manageable, and the incentives were aligned. Commitment wasn't just a burden, it was a man's path to purpose. But look around you today. That blueprint has been shredded. The social contract has been rewritten, often without the input of the men expected to fulfill it. The incentives that once drove men toward lifelong commitment haven't just diminished. They have, in many cases, completely evaporated. Let's start with the perception of the relationship itself. For the modern man, entering a committed long-term relationship feels less like a partnership and more like a high-stakes, rigged casino game. Imagine walking into a casino. The dealer tells you that to sit at the table, you must bet your emotional stability, your current savings, half of your future earnings, your mental health, and access to your future children. You look at the history of the table and see that 50% of the players lose everything. Of the 50% who stay in the game, a significant portion report that they are unhappy, or that the prize wasn't worth the entry fee. Would you sit at that table? A rational actor would walk away. Yet, this is the legal reality of modern marriage. In many jurisdictions, the legal framework is a relic of an era that no longer exists, yet it is applied with clinical precision to destroy a man's financial and emotional life. Men have seen their fathers, their uncles, and their best friends lose their homes, their retirements, and their sense of self in divorce courts that often feel like assembly lines for male ruin. When the downside risk is catastrophic and the upside reward is increasingly ambiguous, the only winning move is not to play. The promise of commitment used to be a trade-off. Today, for many men, that promise feels hollowed out. We live in an era where the traditional contributions of a man, provision, protection, and leadership, are no longer celebrated. Instead, they are frequently dismissed as the bare minimum. A man can work 60 hours a week, pay every bill, fix every broken pipe, and offer consistent emotional support, only to be told that he is still failing to meet an ever-shifting set of emotional requirements. He is expected to be a traditional provider when the check comes, but a modern, egalitarian partner when the chores need doing. He is expected to be a rock of stability, yet vulnerable on command. The problem isn't that men don't want to provide or be supportive, it's that they are being asked to do so in an environment where their efforts are taken for granted. If a man were to ask for traditional female contributions, a peaceful home, appreciation, or domestic support, he is often branded as antiquated or toxic. We have created a one-sided expectation of service. When a man feels that his investment of time, money, and soul yields no return in the form of peace or respect, he begins to do a cost-benefit analysis. He realizes that he is working for a company where he can never get a promotion, but he can be fired at any moment for no reason and still be forced to pay the company's bills for the next 20 years. We cannot talk about the death of commitment Without talking about the digital elephant in the room, social media and dating apps have acted as a massive distortion field on human interaction. Before the internet, a man competed with the other men in his town or his social circle. Today, he is competing with a global elite. Dating apps have created an illusion of infinite choice, particularly for women. A woman in a small town can open her phone and match with a millionaire in the city, an athlete, or a model. This has led to hyper-unrealistic standards. We see the rise of the 666 requirement. 6 feet tall, six-pack abs, six-figure salary. While these traits have always been attractive, they are now viewed by many as the entry-level requirements for a basic date. This creates a massive pricing error in the dating market. Why would a woman commit to a good, solid, hard-working man who earns a decent living when her Instagram DMs suggest that a better option might be just one swipe away? This constant upward comparison, driven by curated online personas, makes actual real-world men seem insufficient. Men are being measured against the top 1% of the world's most curated personas. Eventually, the average man, who is by definition most men, realizes he is invisible. And when you are invisible, you stop trying to be seen. There is a tragic irony in this shift. The very men who would make the best long-term partners, the reliable, stable, conscientious men, are the ones being most aggressively devalued. In their 20s, these men are often ignored. They are focused on building their careers, their credit scores, and their character. They aren't the exciting choice, they are the boring choice. They watch as the women they would love to commit to spend their best years chasing thrills, or men who have no intention of ever settling down. Then the script flips. As these women enter their 30s and the biological clock begins to chime, they suddenly start looking for that good, stable man. But by then, that man has lived through a decade of rejection. He has seen the game for what it is. He has spent years being told he wasn't enough, and in that time, he built a life for himself. He found that he likes his clean apartment. He likes his quiet weekends. He likes that his bank account only goes toward things he enjoys. He has built a life of peace. When the person who ignored him at 23 comes looking for him at 33, he doesn't see a prize. He sees a person who is finally willing to settle for him because their other options have run out. And most men don't want to be someone's settle. They would rather be alone. We also have to acknowledge the social minefield that modern dating has become. In our current culture, the very act of a man showing interest in a woman has been fraught with risk. We have reached a point where a polite approach at the gym, the office, or even a coffee shop can be framed as creepy or harassing if the man isn't in that top 1% of attractiveness. Men are hyper-aware of the creeper narrative. They see the TikTok videos of women shaming men for simply looking in their direction at the gym. Why would a man risk his reputation, his job, or his social standing to approach a woman when the likelihood of a positive outcome is low, but the likelihood of being publicly shamed is high? Many men have simply decided to opt out of the pursuit entirely. Let's look at a concrete example. Consider a 28-year-old software developer, a good kid, perhaps a bit shy, but making a solid $80,000 a year. He picks up a date, takes her to a restaurant she chose, and spends $150. Throughout the meal, she is on her phone, tagging the food, tagging the restaurant, but completely ignoring the man sitting across from her. To her, he is just an accessory to her content creation, an unpaid intern in the business of her social media life. When he tries to engage, she finds him boring because he isn't providing the cinematic entertainment she's conditioned to expect. After the meal, she leaves without a thank you and posts the next day about how men don't know how to date anymore. This is the cognitive dissonance men face every single day. Why would that man do that a second time? He wouldn't. He'll go home, play his video games, work on his car, and realize that his $150 is better spent on a new graphics card or a weekend trip with his friends. This leads us to the great adaptation. There is a common narrative that men who are single for years must be miserable, lonely, and desperate. But for a growing number of men, that simply isn't true. They are transforming loneliness into solitude. Loneliness is a state of lack. Solitude is a state of self-sufficiency. Men are problem solvers. When they find that the relationship problem is unsolvable under current conditions, They solve for peace instead. They are investing in themselves. They are traveling, building businesses, mastering hobbies, and cultivating deep, meaningful male friendships. In the past, a man's emotional life was often tied entirely to his wife. Today, men are realizing they can find community and support elsewhere. They are realizing that a dog is more loyal, a gym membership is more rewarding, and a successful career is more stable than a modern relationship. They have built fortresses of solitude, and the cost of entry for a woman to be invited into that space is now incredibly high. If a woman doesn't bring more peace than she takes, she isn't getting in. We must also address the financial disconnect. We live in an era where women are more educated and higher earning than ever before. However, mating preferences haven't caught up to economic reality. Most women still prefer a partner who earns more than they do. As women move up the economic ladder, the pool of men they consider eligible shrinks. At the same time, many of these high-earning women still expect traditional chivalry when it comes to the check. Men see this inconsistency. They see women who want equality in the boardroom, but tradition on the dinner date. They see women who make $100,000 a year, but still won't date a man who makes $70,000. This hypergamy creates a situation where a small percentage of men are overwhelmed with options, while the vast majority are deemed unworthy. When a man realizes he is being judged solely by his utility as a resource provider in a world where women are already providing for themselves, he begins to wonder why he should bother. Furthermore, consider the housing requirement. In many major cities, only about 5% of men under 35 own property. Yet a woman living in a shared apartment, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, will reject a man because he doesn't own a home. It is like someone who can't swim demanding to date only Olympic swimmers. The math doesn't math. This delusion is astronomical, and it is driving men away from even trying to enter the market. They see the barrier to entry as impossibly high and the rewards as non-existent. We cannot ignore the shadow of the family court system. For many men, the fear of divorce isn't just about a breakup. It is a fear of state-sanctioned asset liquidation. We have normalized a system where a person can decide they are unhappy and take half of another person's life work, their home, and their future earnings. The weaponization of children in custody battles is a profound trauma. Men are logical. They look at the contract of marriage and realize it is the only contract where the person who breaks it is often financially rewarded. No businessman would sign that. Why should a man? Now let's talk about the cultural climate. We have spent the last decade normalizing the disparagement of men. Phrases like "men are trash" are celebrated, while any criticism of women is labeled as misogyny. Imagine the roles reversed. There would be an outcry. But men are expected to be the villain in every story. Disrespect is a powerful repellent. You cannot tell a group they are the problem with the world and then wonder why they don't want to commit to building a world with you. Men haven't disappeared. They've just gone where they are respected. Often, that's just home, by themselves. Look at the independent woman narrative. True independence is a quiet thing, but the loudest voices screaming about not needing a man are often those living paycheck to paycheck, borrowing money for weekend parties. It is a cope. Deep down, they know the biological clock is real. They party through their 20s, build a career through their 30s, and then expect to pick a husband off the shelf like a handbag. But the store is closed. The men they want are dating 25-year-olds who actually like them. This isn't misogyny, it's market dynamics. Reality doesn't care about your feelings. The shaming tactics have backfired. Call a man an incel for having standards, he'll just shrug and go back to his hobbies. Shame him for not approaching. He'll thank you for saving him the rejection. The shame doesn't work because men have realized being alone isn't the worst outcome. Being with someone who doesn't value you is. Being with someone who sees you as a walking ATM is. I remember a wedding I attended. A fancy affair that probably cost $100,000. The groom's face wasn't full of joy. It was resignation. He looked like a prisoner of war signing a confession. The bride spent the entire reception complaining about the flowers and the cake. She never looked at him with love. 6 months later, they were divorced. She kept the ring, the gifts, and the photos. He kept the debt and the depression. Why would any man sign up for that? We aren't scared of commitment, we're scared of committing to the wrong person who will destroy our lives and walk away with prizes. Men are problem solvers. Lonely? Get a dog. Need intimacy? There are solutions that don't demand your credit card. Need emotional support? Male friendships are stronger than ever because men have realized they can't depend on women for it. Men have adapted to loneliness like humans adapted to cold climates. They built tools and moved on. Meanwhile, women in their 30s and 40s are having mental breakdowns because they bought the lie that they could have it all whenever they wanted. They were told men would always be standing in line to audition. They were wrong. The dating apps have made it catastrophically worse. They give average women the illusion of infinite choice. She matches with 500 men and feels like Cleopatra. She doesn't realize those men swiped right on everyone. She isn't special. She's just present. That validation is addictive, but it leads nowhere. I tell young men, forget the apps. It's a rigged game. Would you play poker if the dealer could see your cards but you couldn't see theirs? That's what dating apps are for men. You're competing against men who don't exist. Photoshop abs, rented cars, fake vacation photos. Even if you win, what did you win? A woman who thinks she's settling for you. That's a prison sentence. The traditional paths to meeting are destroyed. Approach at work? HR complaint. Approach at the gym? Creep. Approach at a bar? Predator. Then those same women ask, where did all the confident men go? It's like making every door a fire exit with an alarm and wondering why nobody comes inside. Investment is something men understand. You expect returns proportional to risk. Modern relationships are high risk with guaranteed negative returns. It's like investing in a company that promises to take your money, give you nothing, and then take half of everything else when they leave. No rational person makes that investment. The double standards are everywhere. A woman has a height requirement. Know your worth. A man has a weight preference. Shallow. A woman wants a rich man. Value. A man wants a young woman. Predator. The rules only apply to one side. Women are told they are perfect as they are. You're a queen. Men are told they are defective and need constant improvement. One gender thinks they deserve everything without effort, and the other is exhausted from effort that yields nothing. What did we think would happen? A study showed women rate 80% of men as below average in attractiveness. That is mathematically impossible, but it shows the level of delusion. The average woman thinks the average man is beneath her. The men who are successful today are often those who don't care about women's opinions at all. They've internalized that female validation is worthless. Ironically, this indifference attracts women more than genuine care ever could. What a sick joke. The men who would be good partners are invisible, and the men who treat women poorly are in high demand. To understand the long-term impact of this withdrawal, we must look at the sociological shifts occurring right now in late 2025. Data reveals that the marriage rate has dropped to record lows, falling from 5.1 per 1,000 people in 2000 to just 3.8 today. This isn't just a statistical blip, it is a fundamental shift in how people view the necessity of formal unions. The economic impact is equally staggering. Wedding spending once boosted local economies by billions, but that revenue is drying up. More importantly, the milestone of homeownership, once tied directly to marriage, is becoming unattainable for many, further decoupling the traditional family unit from the economy. This withdrawal isn't just about money, it's about mental health. For men, the psychological landscape of solitude is vastly different from that of loneliness. While chronic social isolation can lead to depression and earlier death, solitude, when chosen intentionally, is invigorative. Research shows that solitude acts as a release from the pressure of performing social roles. It allows for deeper self-understanding and focus. Men who master solitude report lower negative affect and reduced stress. They are not hiding from the world. They are recharging away from conflictual social networks. Consider the case of the high earner. This is a man in his late 30s, an executive or entrepreneur who has spent 15 years building a kingdom. He has the house, the car, the passport stamps. In the past, he would have been the ultimate catch. Today, he is the most cautious investor in the room. He sees a marriage contract as a hostile takeover bid. He has reached a level of life where he values his peace above all else. He realizes that bringing a partner into his life who demands constant emotional maintenance and has a what's yours is mine mentality is the quickest way to lose the stability he worked so hard to achieve. He isn't lonely. He's protective of his legacy. Then there is the average Joe. This is the man who works a steady job, maybe in trades or mid-level management. He is the backbone of society, yet he is the most invisible in the digital dating age. He has been told by the Cleopatras of dating apps that he is below average. So he stops looking. He finds community in local sports leagues, online gaming communities, or hobbyist groups. He finds that his average life is actually quite extraordinary when he isn't constantly being told he isn't enough. He realizes that the biological clock pressure was never really his to carry. He can be a father at 45 if he chooses. He doesn't have the same urgency as the women who rejected him. Finally, consider the divorcee. This man has already been through the meat grinder. He has seen his assets split and his time with his children rationed by a court. He is the most vocal about the risks because he has the scars to prove it. He is the one telling the younger men to be careful. He has found that the second half of his life, lived in solitude or casual companionship, is infinitely more peaceful than the first half lived in a conflictual commitment. He is a cautionary tale that has become a mentor. The great correction is also an economic one. As men withdraw, the housing market of two becomes the housing market of one. Discretionary spending shifts from family consumption to individual luxury and experience. We are seeing a rise in solo travel, personal wellness for men, and investment in personal hobbies. This isn't a boycott, it's a reallocation of resources. Men are realizing that their surplus value, the extra money and time they have after taking care of themselves, is theirs to keep. Building a fortress of solitude is the ultimate goal for the modern single man. This isn't a basement or a cave, it is a life built on 3 pillars: wealth, health, and mental mastery. Wealth means financial autonomy. It means having enough that you never have to stay in a bad situation for financial reasons. It means your money works for you, giving you the freedom to say no. Health is the foundation. It's about being physically capable, disciplined, and energetic. A man in peak health has a level of confidence and self-respect that no external validation can match. Mental mastery is the final piece. It's the ability to sit in a room alone and be content. It's the ability to process emotions without drama and to make decisions based on logic and long-term vision rather than short-term impulse or loneliness. The consequences don't care about excuses. Women in their 40s are learning this painfully. All those men they rejected are now married to younger women or happily single with money in the bank. The demands they made, nobody is trying to meet them. The market has spoken. There isn't a simple solution because this is the bed we've made. Birth rates will fall, loneliness will rise, and in 20 years, we'll look back at today as the good old days. My advice for men: focus entirely on yourself. Build your wealth, your health, and your happiness. If a woman adds value, great. If not, you've lost nothing. For women, ask if your standards are based on reality or Instagram fantasy. But most won't listen until the pain becomes unbearable. This will continue until women realize delusional standards are self-sabotage, and until society admits the old ways actually worked. The social programming runs deep. Even men who see through it struggle because we are wired to protect and provide. But protect and provide for what? For someone who posts on TikTok about how men are useless. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. Men are finally realizing it. There is a profound peace in male solitude. No drama, no arguments. You come home and it's quiet. Your money is yours. Your time is yours. Your decisions are yours. Want to buy a motorcycle? Buy it. Want to play video games all weekend? Nobody's complaining. This isn't loneliness, it's freedom. So yes, men are staying single for years, and the current dating culture is to blame. Not all women, but enough that the game has changed. Men have adapted. We're fine being alone. The question is, are the women? Because from where I'm standing, the birthday candles are burning down, the options are shrinking, and reality remains undefeated. If you want a different outcome, you have to offer a different value. Until then, the fortress of solitude remains the safest, most logical place for a man to be. Focus on your mission. Build your kingdom. If a queen arrives who truly deserves a throne, you'll know. But don't go looking for one in a market that only sells illusions. The greatest investment you will ever make is in yourself, and that is an investment that never depreciates, never walks away with half your assets, and never tells you that you aren't enough. In the end, your peace is your greatest possession. Protect it.